Who's the most despicable villain of them all? Gaston is actually way worse than we remember. In my original Beauty and the Beast Origins videos, a lot of people seem to think that Gaston is merely a meaty man helping out a little town by getting rid of a perceived beastly threat. But it's way worse than Gaston just thinking about and with his muscle. And this movie does such a terribly good job at making Gaston a frightening force of a villain. We're going through scene by scene, frame by frame, just to see what makes Gaston the best. Well, worst, most despicable villain. He eats 5 dozen eggs every morning, which would be enough to feed a very big family, and make sure that everyone worships the ground he walks on, but these alone don't make someone a bad guy. Off-putting to some, but not inherently bad. It's just no growth beyond the who am I and what do I want beyond getting rocks off and looking hot department. Everything Gaston does seems to be for public approval and validation. Because, like many a Disney villain, Gaston is incredibly vain. When we first meet him, it's as clear as his own winking reflection that Gaston's first and truest love is himself. But I'm not sure he's even that kind to himself or knows who he is or what he wants beyond being that guy that every other guy wants to be. File that notion away, it's a dive later. The whole song at the start of the movie sets up Belle as different from the rest of them, and oblivious to her quirky personality, Gaston wants to marry her for her looks alone. I'm not sure he's even attracted to Belle, he just knows that she is the prettiest, and that shallow reason makes her the best and his match. No girl stands a chance against Gaston, but he's got his sights set on that one. She's the most beautiful girl in town, and that makes her the best, and don't I deserve the best? Ever the hunter, Bella's just a mark to Gaston. Well, more accurately, a pretty trophy to collect and something to brag about to the town. Just watch, I'm going to make Belle my wife. Perfect! A public challenge, an unnecessary declaration to the town without consulting or considering Belle. As he says this, the villagers admire Gaston for like a second, but then go back to being enraptured and singing about Belle, which their lack of attention and focus kinda miss Gaston. Just look at his befuddled face. He's so vain, he probably thought this song was about him. Anyway, he then feels the need to jump over rooftops to get to the person of their interest, invade her personal space right away, throw her favorite book in the mud, tell her that she needs to start thinking about more important things. Him. Settle down, as is expected in the little town. He won't take no for an answer, and it's very juvenile mean boy how he teases her and takes her stuff and then laughs at her. That's not love, that's just bullying. It's worth noting that he also bullies his, quote, friends like poor LeFou, and is willing to use them to make himself look better. For example, when Belle calls Gaston out for insulting her father Maurice, Gaston immediately turns to LeFou. Yeah, don't talk about her father that way, bonk. Like Gaston wasn't the one instigating it. Gaston is very terrible to LeFou generally and specifically uses him as a punching bag and forces him to freeze outside for days for his own plans. More on that later. Anyway, Gaston next visits to propose marriage after only hearing no's from Belle, with the whole town ready to party, priest ready to officiate. Presumptuous much? All this when Belle is at home, alone, and God's the energy he struts in with is so... wow, it's a lot. Personal space bubble who? Belle's gymnastics for dodging this beastly man are incredible. And look, if we're going by the rules of, quote, polite society back in Once Upon a Time times, 2 unmarried people being alone together unsupervised in a house with the door shut would be scandalous. So, Gaston, it seems, is willing to compromise Belle's reputation and future prospects by barging in against her will. But then again, maybe that's part of the plan. Make it so she has no choice but to marry him, as we'll see he does again later. But most likely, he's just so confident she won't be able to resist him and his jocular attitude that the scandal is a moot point to him. If we're not going with the old-timey scandal scenario and judging this by the modern times in which it was made, Gaston still intrudes into Belle's house against her will while she's alone, forces his disgusting feet on her, assaults her senses with his pungent aroma, and tells her how it's going to be when they are married. Yikes! Contrast to the beast who gives Belle space, a whole wing of the castle, lol, celebrates her bookish hobbies, and even bathes for her. Wow. Also, and again, this goes back to Gaston not even really being attracted to Belle as a person, but as an idea he deserves. When he catches his own reflection in the mirror, mid-proposal, which you know should be about extolling the other person's virtues and your love for them, he checks himself out a lot. My, what sharp teeth he has. He definitely strikes me as the type of person that it doesn't matter who they are getting down with or what that person looks like, Gaston would be watching himself in a mirror the whole time because he is what he, quote, loves and deserves the most. Rawr, tiger. But this mirror scenario appears a few times, and it's so crucial because it shows how Gaston looks at Belle. He doesn't. And then we get to see how the Beast looks at Belle, and that guy is enraptured. Puppy eyes, wonder, excitement, you get it. The Beast wants Belle because he values her company. Gaston just wants someone to make him more attractive to others, a trophy. Belle wittily gets out of the proposal and the personal space bubble invasion. I just don't deserve you. And Gaston gets what he deserves, humiliated in the pig mud. I will have Belle for my wife, make no mistake about that. That does not sound like love at all, but toxic anger at being humiliated. Theirs would not be a happy union, I am thinking. Yikes. It's a very childish trait, not getting what you want and then not stopping until you do, despite who you'll hurt along the way. Worth noting, how Gaston treats others seems to be how he actually feels he deserves to be treated. Deep down in his abyss of a, is there a soul? It's not how he wants to be treated, but how he feels he deserves, which is why he's always the first to tease or dish out anger. And I may be giving him too much here, but again, so far I need to say that none of this is evil like a typical villain, although it is disrespectful and harmful and speaks volumes of the things to come. If Gaston is angry, it's everybody's problem. He's not upset at Belle's unreturned feelings because he doesn't have any feelings for her, really. But what's actually got him in a twist is her humiliating him, rejecting him in front of everybody. Public humiliation is his worst fear, and with that, being just like everybody else will never do. His self-worth seems to come only from looking the best and being the center of attention. The tavern even has a whole spot dedicated to him with his picture and trophies on the wall. But in more serious matters, everyone has to rally and sing Gaston's praises to get him out of a dangerous, brooding mood. Are they so frightened of what he'll do in sulky anger mode that they just play along with him and sing to his ego? That is not healthy. They remind him that he doesn't just belong, he is the best of the crowd and everyone loves him, so he can have permission to love himself and absolve himself of any wrongdoing. His, quote, virtues in the Gaston song are mostly just physical. His chest hair, his muscly muscles, expectorial prowess, intimidating stature. I mean, not just anybody could romp around wearing boots like Gaston. What? I feel like in all this I need to side note, there is nothing wrong or bad about taking care of your body and being proud of it. Over and out. But then, in the middle of this ego stroking, Maurice shows up, which gives Gaston the perfect opportunity to save Belle, you know, his supposed love, and win some esteem in her eyes. But instead he mocks and humiliates his potential future father-in-law. And after kicking crazy old Maurice out into the cold, he sings about how he takes cheap shots with his plans to persecute harmless crackpots. Gaston does not even hide the depths of his depravity from the town or the viewer, and somehow, some way, he still exceeds them. And this is where a lot of people forget just how awful Gaston is. His devious side shows when he rallies the whole town to kill the beast. Again, some could see this as, quote, good and helpful if his motives were pure, and there were actually any threat, which there's not. If he simply heard that a beast was hurting innocent villagers unprovoked, sure, maybe it makes sense to storm the castle, pitchforks and torches ablazing. But that is not the case. This was not his original plan. Before the rally, the original plan was born of something irrational and selfish, his refusal to acknowledge Belle's refusal of his advances. He can't take no for an answer and so connives an impossible situation in which Belle will have no choice but to marry him, he thinks. A little persuasion, yikes as he calls it. All because of a publicly bruised ego, because he doesn't love her for her. He just tosses her beloved books in the mud, listens to her not at all, and has no idea who she is as a human being beyond being attractive and hard to get. Unlike the pretty trifecta in town who actually seems interested in him. Well, they match a superficial energy level. Contrast that to the Beast, who offers Belle a whole library based on what he, well, really the enchanted servants, know of her interests so far. His actual plan involves bribery to commit Belle's father, Maurice, to an insane asylum unless Belle agrees to marry him. Because Maurice is a bit different than the rest of the town, Gaston takes his assumption that Maurice's sanity is only so-so and plays it up into a threat of us versus them. Does he actually believe it? I don't think so, because ever since seeing Maurice, that wacky old man, the wheels in Gaston's head have been turning, thinking of a way to get rid of him. Not because he's dangerous, but because he's different, an easy mark and an expeditious way to marrying Belle. Even the bribed asylum overseer, who is not an upstanding citizen, shall we say, knows Maurice is harmless but cannot resist this deplorable plot of Gaston's. Maurice is harmless, and so you want me to put Maurice in the asylum unless Belle agrees to marry you. That is despicable. I love it. He knows it's wrong and loves it for that reason. Here's why Gaston's plan was so terrible. Asylums, especially some older ones, were notorious for experimenting and torturing their patients. It could be impossible to get them out of the facility, and people, especially women or those that didn't fit in, were frequently committed because people just didn't want to deal with them or wanted to punish them or wanted what they had. People could be committed for serious mental illness or virtually no reason at all. Hysteria, for example, an old-fashioned term for a disorder characterized by neurological symptoms, often accompanied by exaggerated or inappropriately emotional behavior, or not conforming to expected societal norms, even not wanting to get married. Yeah, Belle's in danger here too. These supposed places of healing were essentially overcrowded jails with the extra perk of, quote, care, which really consisted of torture in the form of experimental treatments. In America, think mass lobotomies and other forms of control. Sanitation was not a priority, and with overcrowded facilities with people in various states of despair or disease, you can only imagine what these places were like. And Gaston thinks this is a fitting place for his would-be father-in-law. Now, this topic becomes nuanced because we don't know exactly what year Disney's Beauty and the Beast is supposed to take place in and which French asylum situation Maurice would be thrown into. There's a really interesting Tumblr post that places Disney's animated movie in the late 1800s based on the Beaumont version of Beauty and the Beast that Disney based their animation on, Gaston's blunderbuss, the clothing, food references, book printings, etc. It's pretty neat. And French asylums seem a little different than the American sanatoriums, having been created during the French Revolution as a place for citizens to get rational again, to be able to vote rationally, etc. I think that the actual year of this made-up story would determine the type of asylum Maurice would be sent to, but no, some were okay. Other private ones were for past nobility paying lavishly to stay out of political prison and execution. And then there were overcrowded public asylums with all of the complications of overcrowding. Regardless, it's not an ideal place to be sent to. Gaston storms into Belle's house with such authority it feels like he's going to arrest someone. Wow, such romance. And he would. The Dulune jail cell of a carriage is waiting outside, ready to strap poor Maurice in tight. Fortunately, no one is home, Maurice having left to actually help his daughter. Upset to say the least, Gaston forces his closest friend, LeFou, to suffer in the cold for days while keeping watch outside of the house. He doesn't even have proper garments for warmth. This friendship is very one-sided. Gaston manages to convince everyone in town that his future father-in-law, harmless, eccentric, reclusive inventor, was a danger to them all, and that their only choice is to lock him up far away from them. He does this in a matter of minutes, presumably after LeFou informs him someone's home. They are willing to use force on the poor old guy too. Why else bring pitchforks and weapons? Also, as we've sort of discussed, Gaston clearly doesn't respect his desired wife as a person if he's willing to basically wipe out her father whom she loves so dearly. Way to make the worst impression time and time again, Gaston. Did you really think this would make her admire you if she did agree to marry you in exchange for her father's freedom? It's literally like the Beast's original bargain in the movie, but rather than mellowing out and learning to love like the Beast does, Gaston only heats up more and more into dangerous violence. The Beast lets Belle go to her father because he loves her. Gaston will lock Belle's father up because his love, biggest air quotes, is possessive. And, well, it's not really love because literally the marriage is punishment for Belle for daring to publicly humiliate Gaston with her refusal. When Belle still refuses marriage, Gaston says she's as crazy as the old man, which is a super dangerous thing to say to a crowd that already has Maurice locked up and ready to be put away forever. They could just as easily be moved to throw Belle in there with him. The only reason this doesn't work out is because Belle defends her father's sanity by showing proof of the beast, sad and in pain and rage for losing her, in her little mirror to an already excited and violent crowd. But that's not even the spark that ignites the Kill the Beast movement. The townsfolk are stunned to find that raving Maurice wasn't so disillusioned, sure, but it's not until Gaston realizes that Belle has feelings for the beast that he becomes enraged and enters his own true beast mode. All because the Prince Beast has won Belle's heart where Gaston could not. Gaston then incites the crowd with his own anger and rage to hunt the beast. He overplays every citizen's concern to his own ends. For example, will he hurt our children? Belle, no, he's so kind. Gaston, the beast will make off with your children. He'll come after them in the night. We're not safe until his head is mounted on my wall. Villagers, he'll come stalking us at night, set to sacrifice our children to his monstrous appetite, etc. You get it, quickly escalating to kill the beast. Ironically, no one listened to Maurice when he was a, quote, lunatic raving about a beast in the tavern before, but now with the crazy old Maurice locked away, everyone is on board with this beast's existence because of Gaston's stark raving rage-fueled insistence that the beast is a menace, despite Belle's protestations, and must be offed. The townsfolk are also not blameless in this anymore. They sing what I consider to be the most chilling line in the whole movie. We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious at least. We'll save our village and our lives. We'll kill the beast. Rather than trying to understand something a little different so it's no longer scary or different, the villagers instead ironically resort to mass hysteria and mob mentality with a single purpose: kill the beast. Maybe they should all be taken to the asylum. The cart's right there. But yes, it's absolutely Gaston that leads them to this violent action. He stokes their fears, builds upon them, and exaggerates them until everyone can only act with hatred and fear. He's a mouthpiece for the sleepy little town, and he has no limits. It's not like he had to twist anyone's arm to show up menacingly and carry weapons to capture Maurice, but he'll make sure they are used. All it took for him to switch their attention from being frightened by the beast to wanting to end the beast was playing into their darkest fears and exaggerating them. He knew what he was doing, and he does it so well, which is terrifying. They don't like what they don't understand. That means the beast, sure, but it of course also includes Belle and Maurice. After however many years of tolerating the pair, this town now has a voice and permission to act on their fear and lock the eccentric inventor and his nothing like the rest of us daughter in a cellar. Now fully alive and in his element of power with his new quarry and the admiration of the whole village, Gaston throws Belle away like she's nothing. If you're not with us, you're against us. She was clearly only ever a means to an end, the prettiest couple in the village. Gaston could not bear anyone but him having the prettiest bride, even if he's not into her. But now he's made her public enemy number 1. Well, 2, the beast is the top spot. So he can only distance himself from her, discard her. The only ending for Gaston would be what he got. He takes so much pleasure in his single-sided fight with the beast, it's alarming. He really does need to be the showy best, because once the beast does fight back, we can see he loses all confidence. Let me go, please don't hurt me. I'll do anything, anything. He doesn't want competition. He wants simply to be the best, whatever that is, at whatever cost, including being a sneaking, backstabbing worm. The reason Gaston works so well is because he has no limits. He tells us he has no limits and then shows us just how depraved he is. And the town has readily delegated him as their mouthpiece, their voice of hatred that they don't dare say themselves. Gaston is only too eager to sacrifice an old man to torture, kill a beast with his back turned, and incite a whole town to violence because he doesn't get his way. And the village was eager to follow. If Belle hadn't tried to prove Maurice's sanity by showing the beast in her magic mirror, who knows where that mob's angry, violent energy would have been directed. My guess is Belle herself and her and Maurice's cottage and inventions. But that doesn't matter because Gaston didn't care where the crowd's anger was directed as long as he was the one directing it. Belle had just rejected him again, so she was absolutely on his hit list too. To get way deeper than Gaston deserves perhaps, I don't think Gaston even really knows what he wants because he doesn't even really know or like himself beyond what the little town society expects him to be. He's like a black hole, never filled because he'll never be happy because he'll never know what will actually make him happy. That would take some soul-searching and brutal honesty with himself, which I don't see Gaston caring one hoot about. He collects things, animal trophies, the prettiest girl, the town's admiration, all to be the best. Not human, but the best. Gosh, this movie does the beast versus best, who is really human dance so well. The beast has control and limits, but Gaston doesn't. And that's what makes him so very cruel and evil. Gaston is so scary because he's so very ordinary in this way, so plausible. He has no special magical powers or tools, but knows how to work a crowd to act on his own vile, entitled impulses. Gaston feels like a real-world villain because he is. And dang, did the writers do an excellent job chiseling this, well, chiseled brute of a character. The ironic thing is though, Gaston would be very easy to bring down. All it would take would be a dose of his own medicine. Everybody laughing at him, not with him. Gaston is so boorishly powerful and predictable and potentially easily broken because he's rather like a shell of a human really. Well, 5 dozen eggshells precisely. Gaston is quite the simple yet scary villain. In the movie's own words, despicable. But what are your thoughts? Are there any other quote villains you'd like to see a video on? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out and do subscribe so you won't miss the dark fairy tale or spooky video coming out of the cauldron quite soon. Goodbye.